when you ask someone, are you a knitter or are you a crocheter? It's like you're saying that like it's an identity. Hello, welcome back. This is Originally Lovely podcast episode 2. Today I wanted to talk about a topic that I'm very passionate about, and this is the benefits of knitting and crochet. But I'm going to go about it in a little bit different way and touch on some things that you might not be familiar with already. We all know that knitting and crochet has so many benefits. What I want to talk about a little more today are the benefits of knitting and crochet that, again, I don't hear many people talk about. So the first thing I want to talk about is how knitting and crochet connects us to the world on a deep-rooted, primal level. You know, this brings us back to our ancestors and connects us more to like a traditional way of living that a lot of us are missing in our daily lives. You know, we are living such a technology-based life that the hands-on, tangible type of things and making and creativity are sometimes a little bit lost or just not as much at the forefront of how we're living our day-to-day lives. So you've probably heard that knitting and crochet helps combat depression and anxiety, but how necessarily? You know, obviously it's fun and enjoyable, but there's a lot more to it than that. You know, instinctually, I really do believe that we are meant to create, and this is proven with science actually, which is super interesting. There's actually a reward mechanism in our brain. It's called the effort-driven reward cycle. I'm reading because I want to make sure I don't mess up any of this. So we have a mechanism in our brain actually that makes us feel good when we use our hands. This is the feeling of calm that we experience when we're doing something like gardening or cooking, knitting, of course. It's likely programmed into us in a way from back in our ancestral days, you know, more like the hunter-gatherer lifestyle. These were the qualities that not only helped us survive and lived, but helped us thrive both physically, mentally, emotionally. I love this quote from an article in Scientific American. I'll pull that up right here. It talks about effort-driven rewards don't come from just physical effort. They also involve complex movement coupled with intricate thought processes. So imagine 1,000 years ago when our ancestors were tracking a pack of wild boars, so hunting, through a forest or across a plain. You know, that involved like the physical exertion. There was the physical aspect of that, but there was also the skill and, you know, the thought process that went into it. And you're kind of like connecting all those different qualities. You know, you're working hard physically, you're thinking hard. And that's something that, like I said, we're very devoid of in our modern lives. There's a reason that tangible work can feel more productive. You know, if a big thing is cleaning, when people aren't feeling productive, they can physically stop what they're doing and go clean something, and then suddenly you do feel more productive. And that makes sense because when you're working on your computer, you're not really accomplishing a tangible task to the same level that you are as cleaning or doing something a little bit more physical. Another really good example for me personally was, I think back to school, and you know, I was born in 1993, so I kind of lived through, I'm sure a lot of you did, live through the point of where you started out your education working on like a pen and paper, and then ended your education like working on computers. So the tests turned like computer-based, digital, and something about it, like once things switched over to be a little bit more digital, my grades suffered. You know, it was harder to study. There was just something about that like tangible pen, paper, physical book that really helped me remember and helped us connect with the material and what we were learning. Another good example is just like food, obviously. We're not overly connected to our food. I mean, we can be at times, or seasonal produce, but it's not like we're fully, generally most of us aren't fully making our food all the way from like point A to Z. We're getting it right at the end and, you know, picking it up. Just so much is convenient, and it really does help. It's nice, but it's just something to keep in mind that there's something about it that we're missing in our lives. So all of this in our modern life has kind of devoid us of the chemical reward center in our brain that makes us feel happy, calm, and productive from doing these types of tasks that we no longer have to do. So that's why knitting is such a benefit. You know, we are tapping into that effort-driven reward cycle. We're using our hands, we're creating something tangible. It's just, the list goes on, and I'm sure we've all experienced this in our day-to-day lives, and science definitely backs it up. So it's very interesting. I've linked that article below as well if you want to dig into it a little more. It's a very interesting read, and I think you will enjoy it. The second thing that I want to talk about is the flow state and how knitting and crochet brings us into the flow state. So the flow state is like the zen that we get when we're doing something meditative or repetitive or creative, something that we're good at. You know, everyone kind of has their different strengths and weaknesses, and there's different ways for people to enter into that flow state, but many of us have probably experienced this with knitting and crochet. You know, you just really get in your flow. The interesting thing about the flow state is that it's a point where the physical effort kind of doesn't really factor into the equation as much. Like, yeah, you're working on something, but you're not feeling a sense of work. Instead, you're feeling a sense of calm and refreshment, and it's actually restorative for our bodies. Even though we're doing something productive, it's amazing, restorative, it's the flow. This quote from NPR I think is really good. It explains the flow as, I'll post that up here, it's that sense of losing yourself, losing all awareness. You're so in the moment and fully present that you forget all sense of time and space. And I mean, a losing sense of time and space is kind of crazy, but we've definitely been there, you know. There's the point where we've probably stayed up too late knitting or crocheting, and it's just one more row, or you're not even thinking about that. You don't realize how far you've made it. You don't realize like quite what's going on. You're staying up late, but then the next day you're not feeling tired like you stayed up late. You're feeling refreshed, rejuvenated, excited, and maybe even like a little bit just energized. You know, it helped us, it was restorative, it got us, we tapped into that flow state, and now we're reaping the benefits. It's kind of funny too, because it's like whenever someone, I mean, you've all probably experienced this, but when someone kind of jokes that knitting and crochet is like you're addicted to it, or like you never stop, and it's like, well, yeah, it makes sense, because it's like it does make us feel good. We get that reward and that flow, and that's how it becomes like part of our lifestyle. So we've talked about how knitting and crochet can connect us within to ourselves, you know, our minds, our bodies, intellectually, but I do want to touch on one way, actually my favorite way, that knitting and crochet connects us to the world around us in a way that you've probably not thought of. It's actually my favorite quality of knitting and crochet, and it's one of the reasons that knitting and crochet is so special to me and so sentimental. Knitting and crochet really helps us to have richer memories and richer experiences in certain areas of our lives. So basically the best way I can kind of describe this or connect it to something other than knitting and crochet is, imagine a restaurant, you know, a really good restaurant. They have, the food is obviously good, but not only that, the atmosphere is beautiful, you know, the service is good, there might be music. You're tapping into so many different sensory experiences, you know, the taste, the sight, the noise. It's just all very relaxing, and that's what makes it stand out to you, is something that's really good and memorable versus just, you know, that same food that you have like at home, and you might not even really pay too much attention to it. You might eat it without even really like connecting to the experience, if that makes sense. So the reason that restaurants or different stores, you know, whatever it is, connect to different multi-sensory ways is because anytime you add another sense to an experience, you're actually making it richer and more prominent in your mind, and in turn you'll be able to remember it and experience it in a different way that you might not otherwise be able to. Another example is how advice for brides is to always wear like a special certain perfume on your wedding day, so that when you have that scent, you might remember it, or, you know, come back to that special day. And this can be said with so many different things in our lives, just like embracing that multisensory experience and getting to live a richer life because of that. So I think this is a really good quote. I'll read it for you. It's from Dr. Andrew Budson, a professor at Boston University. He states that we can use our senses to remember things better. And when we're retrieving memories, we can try to latch on to any one part of a multisensory experience. And that's going to be able to allow us to retrieve the memory more easily, faster, and potentially in a richer and more detailed manner. So there we go. Multisensory experiences in action. A professor of neurology is proving what we already knew. So the way this connects with knitting and crochet is think of a project that you love and think of what you were doing when you were making that project. You know, maybe it's something that you took on a trip or made during a certain special time in your life. You know, I remember making this sweater. My son was just home from the hospital and I wanted a project that I could work on while he was napping, and it will always be special for me and trigger those memories. I think specifically this brioche rib hat that I'll put the picture up. I wore it in Ireland, and that is such a good example. This hat specifically brings up so many different memories. It's so special. It was one of the first projects I made with my own yarns. I remember the holidays when I was making it. It was just so cozy. I remember outside the snow. We were in my old house, and it just means so much to me and brings me back to each of these experiences in such a loving and just tender way that I love it. You know, I'm very sentimental as it is, but this is a really fun way to connect with those experiences and positive times in your life. So then add in each experience you have with that item. You know, a baby blanket is a good example. Growing up with it, like, it becomes so much more than just an item. You know, it's handmade, it was special, it was a gift to you, and now it's went through these experiences with you. And you know, like we talked about earlier, all these positive feelings that come out of making something, it really is like love in each stitch. It's just so special and so sentimental, and really does make our memories richer and just more prominent in our minds. I think of that woman who, it was like a reel that was really popular a couple years ago. She was knitting on her wedding day. On her way to her wedding, she was knitting in the car, and I think that's so special. You know, she really knew what she was doing there, because whatever she was making at that time will always be so special to her, and it just will connect her to that day. So all of this to say, I just think these are some very underrated or under talked about benefits of knitting and crochet that I really don't hear of very often. Knitting and crochet literally enhances your life and your experience through life. It gives us stronger memories. You know, it connects us to our mind and our body. You know, we get that effort-driven reward cycle, that little like dopamine or whatever it is boost in our brains, and it's just feel good. It's a really important thing, and that's why I say it all the time. Knitting and crochet is an art, it's a lifestyle. Like, when you ask someone, are you a knitter or are you a crocheter? It's like you're saying that like it's an identity, and it's because it really is, because it just becomes part of who we are, and it's so special. And I'm sure all of us have experienced these things in our day-to-day lives, but putting a name to them is always kind of fun. So let me know if I missed anything or if you have any questions below. It was so great to chat with you guys. Have a great day. Bye.